The next speaker is going to be given a talk about understanding web3. You've heard about that word a few times today. It's going to be a little bit more of a deep dive. How and why it's changing the world. The speaker is Kyle Rojas, Head of Business Development and Partnerships at Edge and Node. And what is Edge and Node? It's a core dev team there supporting the graph. If you haven't heard of the graph, what it is this amazing indexing tool, protocol, for querying networks like Ethereum and IPFS, interplanetary file system. Please welcome Kyle Rojas.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Kyle Rojas. I am head of BD and partnerships over at Edge and Node, which you said is a core dev team working on the graph. So first off, obviously great to be here, and I look forward to the discussion. If you want to make it interactive, just raise your hand, yell something out. I think we might have time at the end for Q&A, but we'll see how it plays out and how long-winded I'm going to be. And the reason I'm here, right, is to talk about Web3, what that term actually means. And a lot of people have a lot of different ideas about what Web3 is. But somebody building inside the Web3 stack and the Web3 protocols might have a different opinion, and I'm hoping to educate a little bit today. But also, just to understand why Web3 is happening, right? And to let you know how it's truly changing the world. And I want to give you all some primitives or frameworks on how the internet is evolving from Web 2 to Web 3, and like I said, most importantly, why. And that's where we'd like to concentrate. And my end goal is to make sure you know that this isn't something that could happen, right? That might happen. It's something that's happening right now, every day, that's building in more verticals than you might imagine, right? And hoping to give you some information to let you know that you should be paying attention, you should be getting involved, and if not, that's on you. Now, when I think about how to sum up the space, I always come back to this quote. It's one of my favorites, and this is not anything new in the world, right? We simply adapt or get left behind, and that's in pretty much anything. And the shift is going to be no different. Disruption is almost always ignored, and then it's swatted away, and then it's seen as an existential threat, and it disrupts, and then it's the new normal, right? That's just how history works. And to give an idea, in short, Web3 is societal and economic disruption. It's technological disruption. It's disruption of more than just trying to buy a JPEG or whatever, right? It's truly disrupting so many different parts of this world, from the way we interact with each other, from the way we invest, from the way we do anything in general with regards to technology. And like I said, what's important that if organizations don't adapt, they're going to get left behind. And I personally would rather be part of the steamroller than the road, and I hope you are too. So let's start with as simple a definition as possible for Web3, and then we'll take a quick look under the hood a little. In short, in its simplest form, Web3 is a new platform for decentralized applications, right? Actually very simple, but I think it deserves some unpacking and looking at a few key phrases. What do we mean by platform, right? By definition, in this context, a platform is technology that used as a base, which other applications, processes, or technologies are built, right, upon which. For example, the personal computer is a hardware platform that's allowed people to create games and music and video content, as well as connect to the internet. And the internet is a platform that's led to social media. It's led to global communication and interaction and pretty much everything else we do online, like look at videos of cats. But platforms in the past have always, and this is important, have always, from the railroad to the internet and well before, they've always had gatekeepers. They've always had owners. They've always had owners and rent seekers, right? We always had to rent space in anything, on any platform of technology going back in history. We've always had central entities that control everything from the data to the technology to everything housed on these platforms. And Web3 is a movement that seeks to allow innovation that we've seen in the past with technological innovations, but in a decentralized way. And that's what I really want to emphasize today. From the components of the technology stack to the centralized power and decision-making from the top to the bottom of the ecosystem. And let's go beyond just definitions, right? What does Web3 mean for the world? That's what's important to me, right? That's why I gave up a really good job at Goldman Sachs, partner level responsibility, blew it up to make less, to work harder than I ever have in my life, right? What does it change? And most important than anything else, what are the problems that Web3 solves? And it's a lot. As I alluded to quickly, it's decentralizing the technology stack, and along with that, the power and associated decision-making. It allows us to realign the grossly misaligned incentives and gatekeeping between everything from classes and races and genders and geographies and more, right? It helps us get away from that. Another important thing, it enables verifiable truth, right? Not spin, not narrative, but verifiable truth sitting in immutable code that can be viewed by anyone with access to the internet. We could finally control our own data, right? We could control our own digital identities, not simply be used to make companies profit for an exceedingly small amount of global entities, might I add, as we're all probably well aware. And I think an exciting idea that's just barely starting to take shape is that Web3 allows us to reevaluate how we value contributions to society, right? Do we value capital more than anything? Do we value brain power? Do we value heart, emotions? And the way capital flows, the way power flows, it's not equitable among all those. There's a lot of different other verticals there. But this helps us reevaluate that, and it's just starting to bloom. But make no mistake, out of everything I'm talking about here, all these primitives, decentralization is by far the most important, as it's the foundation upon which everything else is built. And I'll explain why. So let's starting with the tech stack. Right now, in the Web2 world, there is a client-server relationship, a client-to-tech server relationship, which essentially means whoever owns the tech server, where the data is stored, has complete control. Your Facebook, your Instagram, AWS, Google Cloud, all that data is not yours, it's not ours, not really, right? They sit on centralized servers that are controlled by centralized entities. Right? How do we change that? It's only possible with fully decentralized applications on a decentralized tech stack. And this lack of centralized servers takes away centralized control of the world's data, and therefore allows the world to innovate unbridled, in an unbridled way. Obviously without getting shut down by large corporations whose incentive is to shut down competition and own their market share. Because when you're at the top, the only thing you don't want is somebody to disrupt you. And you do that by shutting down disruption, innovation, and competition. And I really think, and this kind of hits me in the heart, that innovation is probably the best leading indicator of any survivability, from an entity to an organization to a species, right? The pace of innovation. You look at the pace of innovation, I'll tell you who's going to survive the longest, until you get to the point where you're so powerful that no one can innovate. But tech decentralization opens the innovation floodgates and will allow the human species to evolve at a pace that we've honestly never seen before in human history, right? Took the railroads hundreds of years to open up to allow people to build. Took the internet tens of years. It's going to take Web3 a few years. Once Web3 infrastructure is truly in place, think of how fast it'll be, a matter of years or months or whatever, sometimes days, that people will get disrupted and will keep failing fast, failing forward, and completely change things in a matter of weeks, months, or quarters. And that's exciting to me because it'll increase the pace of innovation. But beyond innovation, beyond realigning incentives from corporate castles protected by competitive moats, a decentralized tech stack does more for the world. Like I mentioned, enabling verifiable truth. So let's talk about that a bit. All right, here's a good question. How do we know what's true when we see information online? Right? Is there really any way? Can we verify? When we read a news article and we see an author, how do we know that author wrote it? How do we know that author approved it to publish that content? On social media, like when we see a celebrity with a blue check mark, let's say, next to their name on Twitter, tweet something, is there a way for us to verify that it's really them, that's their content? And what about medical data or personal information that's stored on centralized providers and centralized servers that's sometimes hacked? What about, here's some fun, what about corporate balance sheets, right? That are sometimes fudged just a little bit to get through an audit, or sometimes fudged to commit outright fraud? What about the opaque and convoluted financial alchemy that wound up leading to the financial crisis and many crises before. How do we trust the information that we're told is true? But there's one key word here, right? It's trust. We are forced to trust. Forced to trust Twitter, that blue check mark, that they went through the right security protocols, and that celebrity was the one who actually posted that. Trusting the news agency to make sure they went through the right security protocols, and that when they publish, it is that author, and it is that author's words. We had to trust Enron's auditors and make sure they weren't incompetent or corrupt, which they were. We had to trust the ratings agencies about the information leading up to financial crisis and trust that they weren't incompetent or corrupt, which I'm not going to say they were, but it could be argued. In short, we have to trust because we have no other option. But we do, right? It's called web3, and that's the promise of this. And that's what excites me. It gets me waking up every morning and working till I go to bed sometimes. Web3 is information stored on public, immutable ledgers that anyone can verify at any time all around the world through the internet. And imagine if the world's data, the entire world's data, were auditable by anyone in the world with the internet 24/7, 365. Imagine what that would change, right? That's what Web3 infrastructure does, and it's completely changing the game of digital infrastructure and transparency. And Web3 has some other important pillars that help people build better, with everything hinging on that decentralized tech stack. This enables disruption of those traditional incentive models, like I said, affecting everything from social, digital interactions to the way people build the business. Right? That's how DAOs came about. People are organizing in a different way. It allows an innovative idea that decisions made by a group about a technology, the group is in control of actually how those decisions affect them, right? Imagine if we all had a say on how Facebook evolved. Imagine how different that would look, as opposed to a few people behind closed doors making decisions about a protocol that Meltem said half the world uses, half the world relies on, half the world communicates on. And for the last few slides, let's kind of dive into a few of the key social primitives and technologies enabling all this, more specifically DAOs, DeFi, and NFTs. Real quick, show of hands, I'll ask one question, keep your hand up for the second. I'll ask 3 series. Who's heard of DAOs? Keep your hands up. Who is involved in a DAO? Quite a few hands down. Who's heard of DeFi? I bet a lot of hands will stay up. Who's ever participated in DeFi in any way on the internet? It's awesome. We can talk about it after. Happy to grab a beer with you on that. What about NFTs? Who's heard of NFTs? Who owns an NFT? Who's lost money on NFTs? Yeah, all of us. It's all right. So we'll start with DAOs, right? Decentralized autonomous organizations. We might have a workshop to dive in on how DAOs are kind of changing the world, so I won't go into too much detail here, but in essence, DAOs are allowing us to interact on a global scale without the need to trust or even know others within the entity. No central authority or CEO, though some people sometimes rise to the top, almost elected, if you will, based on group consensus and with actions, this is important, actions regulated by code. It's amazing. And this ranges, DAOs range, there's so many DAOs if you haven't seen or heard what's going on, but it ranges from raising money for charity and education, multiple are doing that, gathering funds to invest or start a venture. I've seen DAOs that are raising money to develop vaccines, right? This is just in the medical space, and there are many in the medical space. One that might have been pretty popular, buying collector's items like the US Constitution, right? Which actually happened late last year when Constitution DAO raised over $40 million and almost bought the US Constitution until the Citadel guy, Ken Griffith, I think, came in and swooped it up because his son told him to. Right? That's cool. That's awesome. I love the disruption. It's going to happen. And I can't wait to see how it kind of plays out. DeFi, decentralized finance. It's kind of the thing that started it all, right? With the appearance of Bitcoin in 2009, which decentralized peer-to-peer transactions, cutting out intermediaries and gatekeepers to avoid everything from inflationary actions, arbitrary inflationary actions, to arbitrarily shutting down or locking accounts. But Bitcoin was, just the beginning, the primitive, if you will, right? Ethereum allowed people to build on the blockchain, allowing a Cambrian style of evolution and innovation, which were people building everything in the traditional finance space and more, right? Borrowing and lending protocols, a reimagination of savings accounts, trading platforms, prediction markets, just allowing people to use money Legos. That's kind of a new term now. Money Legos, for lack of a better term, just to create new types of markets altogether. And I think it's worth noting that some of these things happening in DeFi that I use sometimes on a daily basis, because I'm a DeFi nerd, it wouldn't happen without blockchain rails. It wouldn't happen without decentralized finance. One, because the technology's not there, the innovations aren't there. Two, because we'd get shut down in a few seconds, right? We'd get shut down and fined, or who knows. It's amazing to see and even more fun to get involved. And if you aren't involved already, I highly recommend you go tinker. And if you don't know how to tinker, ping me. Again, total DeFi nerd, have been for years, love talking about it, and happy to walk you through. And the last use case I'll cover, because there are more use cases than just what I'm talking about here, is NFTs, right? Non-fungible tokens, definitely a hot topic as cartoon or pixelated pictures of things like apes and people are selling for multiple millions of dollars, right? People might wonder why. I mean, it kind of begs the question how a JPEG can sell for over 10 million bucks. Is it art, right? Is it a group of collectors of a different sort, or is it, status as a service, right? Is it proof of wealth when you pop that profile picture up? Honestly, I and most of us really aren't exactly sure yet, but I love seeing it develop because people are confused by it. And I like when people are confused in the traditional world. And it's okay if I'm confused too. It's building out in real time, and we'll see what it's like in a few years. But in my opinion, NFTs are important for more than just art. It's so much more than JPEGs, right? They'll have some incredible real-world use cases that we're just starting to see come to fruition. I think somebody mentioned it, one of them earlier, but let's say forgery in art can realistically become a thing of the past when you look at verifiable on-chain transaction data. Real-world assets and services, I'm super excited about this. Real-world assets and services will be redeemed with NFTs in a verifiable process that gets rid of the value extracting intermediaries. And smart contracts are going to enable that. I mean, so imagine this. Somebody mentioned real estate earlier. How much could we save on real estate fees around the world when escrows are done through smart contracts and information about homes are kept on chain and can be purchased directly peer-to-peer with NFTs? Think of just one use case. Think how much we'd save around the world. Not only that, with a novel technology called zero-knowledge proofs, ZK proofs, you could do an entire real estate transaction, cradle to grave, in a practically, let's say, completely private manner. Right? I'm not going to go deep into ZK proofs at all, but if you want to talk about it, I know some people building in this space. It's super exciting. It's super novel. It's still being built out, but happy to talk about it later. But just imagine how disruptive this will all be for real estate, for the legal world, for investment banking. I was in finance for a while, for everything, right? Intermediaries in general, just they need to watch out because things will get disrupted. It will disrupt their way of life, their business models, and I hope, they jump on the steamroller and don't just sit on the road. So wrapping this up, I want to emphasize again that these examples are only 3 of many around the world. DeFi will continue eating market share and taking power away from centralized intermediaries and entities. People will organize within DAOs or DAO-like organizations because it's still early. We don't know what it'll look like. Potentially taking a large amount of labor away from the big corporations. What's that going to do? How's that going to work when people who normally would have been making 50 or 60 grand as an auditor go and play Axie Infinity to make a living? Right? How's that going to change things? Just imagine that. And that's happening, right? I know multiple people have quit their jobs to do play to earn, and they're happier. They're a lot happier, and they're making more money than they were before. It's crazy. NFTs in the metaverse will be a place where artists, gamers, and collectors go to talk about the world, to interact. Artificial intelligence is something that's coming up. Artificial intelligence and machine learning will blossom, and simulations will create world-changing technologies within that same metaverse, right? And NFTs will be transacted in that metaverse, and everyone, the hive mind, which I always think is more powerful than just a few people behind closed doors making decisions, the well-incentivized hive mind will move things forward a lot faster. NFTs will be used for more than just online assets, like I said, taking over how we purchase real-world assets and services across all verticals. Social platforms, that's a huge disruptive potential vertical, will change from data aggregators and sellers to individual profit-sharing collectives, allowing an endless number of revenue models if we want to participate. And we'll know what's happening with our data and our digital identities. And something that I'm seeing and I'm helping drive forward, which is so exciting to me, is that the world will run on blockchain rails. The world's data, web3, will eat the world's data. I don't know if it's a matter of years or decades, but it's happening. And once people see the benefits, the privacy, the security of what's going on here, and what it truly means for people's data, I think it's becoming more and more inevitable every day. And the most exciting thing to me is that people have been building a lot of this base infrastructure for probably half a decade now, right? Not talk about Bitcoin or early Ethereum, the Web3 infrastructure in general. And the craziest thing is that the pieces of the Web3 stack are being built in real time. I'm watching it in real time, I'm helping it. And for multiple protocols, half a decade later, it'll probably be ready in the next 3, 6, maybe 12 months. This year, plumbing for Web3 will truly be complete, and that will be just the beginning of this renaissance moving forward to have apps truly be called dApps, right? To have true decentralization, and we'll be able to figure out how this is going to change the world in real time. We're building it day in, day out. It's working. It's absolutely mind-blowing, and I really, really hope you guys and gals are ready for the ride. So that's all I have for now. Any questions? We're done. All right, sorry.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Actually, what I would say is that after listening to that and the passion and positivity, I'm thinking of starting the Kyle DAO, to put him in charge, to fund a career, to actually do some positive government influence about the opportunity and the jobs and the prosperity that can be created, the resilience in economies. Fantastic talk, Kyle. Thank you so much.